and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Monday, the 8th of December. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Amelia Lester.
And I'm Jessie Stevens.
And here's what's on our agenda for today. Why Australian women are still obsessed with Oprah Winfrey, at least if my social media feed from the weekend is anything to be believed.
Plus, this is the week that the social media ban takes effect. Why do I suddenly have complicated feelings about it?
And apparently Travis Kelce confessed to a giant red flag in his relationship with Taylor Swift, and I'm not so convinced. How annoying is it when your business is mini but your card payment processing fees are big? Mini businesses make up the backbone of Australia. So whether you're a florist, hairdresser, or run a cafe, AMP Bank Go believes your mini business deserves a fair go. With their low price promise and clear information on card payment processing fees, mini businesses like yours can keep more of what you earn. AMP Bank Go, taking care of mini business, switch today.
But first, Jessie Stevens.
In case you missed it, it's the time of the year where for about 11 seconds, a dictionary and a design service become surprisingly relevant. Mm-hmm. They have their moment in the sun, we all make a fuss and we forget about them for 12 months. The Oxford Dictionary has declared that their word of the year for 2025 is rage bait.
Which is interesting because I thought that was 2 words.
Yes. Well, last year was brain rot.
It's true, also 2 words.
But there are allegations that this is a classic example of rage bait, given they've broken their own rules.
That's so true.
You can't upset the dictionary people. Like, know your audience. The dictionary people are really annoyed. But use of the term, let's call it a term, has tripled in the last 12 months. And the president of Oxford Languages says that the term brain rot from last year and rage bait from this year they sort of reveal how the digital world are reshaping how we think and more generally our behaviour. The internet used to work on curiosity gaps, used to work on what we call clickbait, right? And now it's all about baiting people with the strongest emotion that they can possibly generate, which is rage. Do you think this was the year of rage bait?
I don't think the human race is okay. Brain rot last year, rage bait this year. I do think it shows that we're getting more sophisticated in our understanding of what the internet is doing to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that it's not meme terms. Like for a while it was kind of these ridiculous, not like skibbity toilet, like that kind of stuff that you go, yeah.
Boaty McBoat face.
Yeah. So for 5 seconds, maybe that's a meme. But I think that these terms, as you say, describe a real phenomenon, so I have more respect for them.
Yeah, I think they speak to our increasing literacy, right? To your point about us becoming more sophisticated, is that hopefully by elevating and amplifying the term rage bait, we're better at spotting it. And that would be a good thing.
Yes. And we saw it like used in advertising this year. Remember we talked about the Elf ad that was that awful comedian, Matt Rife, who they knew their audience didn't like because he'd made a really off-colour domestic violence joke and they threw him in. The ad blew up. The other one was the American Eagle ad and there was just...
Maybe you could argue the pubic hair merkin of Skims.
Rage bait.
Like there are some very good rage bait marketing techniques now.
But I've noticed in my group chats that the rage bait cycle has abated a little bit. So, for instance, I used to have one group chat where we would just send each other links that we knew would get each other worked up about politics.
It was called rage bait.
And now that thread, we've decided that we're not going to do that anymore. And I think there is a power in naming it and then recognizing, oh, all I'm doing is rage baiting.
I'm being played. And that actually brings us to the colour of the year, right? Which is
Kill me.
Pantone, which is a printing business they declare every year their colour. Who can remember the colour of 2025?
No, I'm obsessed with the colours.
It was brown.
It was brown.
Yeah.
It was
Mocha
brown.
mousse.
Mocha mousse. And I reckon spot on. I reckon they nailed it.
Yeah, they nailed it.
I saw a lot of mocha mousse this year. The colour of 2026 is white. Specifically, Cloud Dancer, which is described as a lofty white that serves as a symbol of calming influence in a society rediscovering the value of quiet reflection.
Oh my God.
So what does the colour of the year mean? It means that we're going to be wearing it. It means it's going to be the brand palette of a lot of different places. It means celebrities and red carpets. It means the colour of your interiors. We're going to be seeing it everywhere. I want to know if you are rage baited that white is technically a shade, not a colour.
I'm rage baited just by the whole idea because I can't wear white. So I feel excluded.
Really?
I feel excluded in every way.
Oh.
Like I can't wear white because of my colouring, but I also just can't wear white. Like if
Oh,
I
no,
was
that's
wearing,
fair. Yes.
if I was wearing what Amelia was wearing now, I would have spilt something down it, even if there was nothing near me.
that's so
Yesterday, you know,
true.
I was influenced by you, Jessie, and over the weekend I bought one of those stripy T-shirts.
Yeah.
You know, the viral stripy
Yeah.
T-shirts. And mine is navy with like a yellow stripe.
Great.
Was literally wearing it for 5 minutes, coffee down it, all the yellow stripes covered in coffee. That shirt is dead to me now. I'm a properly grown woman and I still can't wear white.
No, all this means is that bibs are back. Bibs are going to be back.
Oh, bibs.
Yeah,
I
love a
love that.
bib.
Or
Love a
like
bib.
a really enriching cultural conversation about stain removal.
Yes.
Like how to get things out of your clothes. Apparently, I did read an article that said on Christmas Day, we're all wearing white.
Ugh, I'm not,
Apparently.
Amelia.
There's
Are
been
you?
a lot of controversy over this. I love Pantone colour of the year, obsessed with it. Generally buy a pair of slippers in whatever colour it is to set a tone for the year ahead. There hasn't been this much controversy with the colour of the year since 2021 when they named 2 colours. Do you remember that? They named grey and yellow and everyone said, hang on, it's meant to be colour of the year.
Yeah.
But people are saying that they're quite tone deaf or they're calling them Pantone deaf. I'm sorry, I didn't make that up. And it did take me an alarmingly long time to get that joke, so
Yeah.
I'll repeat it again. Pantone deaf. They're saying that the colour, some people are saying that the colour evokes white supremacy at a time when right-wing parties are on the rise around the world. Others are saying it's a recession indicator because we can't afford colour anymore.
Oh, my goodness.
No, because wearing white is a rich person's game. Everybody knows that. It means that you can afford to have your clothes professionally cleaned and your sheets professionally cleaned. Rich people wear white a lot. Jerry Halliwell only wears white and she's married to one of those rich F1 dudes.
Yeah.
Can you remind me what the name of it is again, please?
It is called
Cloud Dancer.
Cloud Dancer.
Amelia did not have to refer to notes.
I believe it is a cool white rather than a warm white.
It is one of my favourite things to do is in Bunnings is to go and look at the paint wall and look at all the shades of white and try and boggle my brain about their minuscule differences.
And if you've ever shopped for a wedding dress, you do know that there are actually, which you haven't, Holly, sorry, but there are multiple types
Different types of white. And
Is that
only
why you
some
didn't get
suit you.
married? Because you knew that white wasn't your
white.
colour?
White's not your
Can't
colour.
wear white. Oh,
Mum
no.
says white's not her colour. She wore gold.
No, very nice.
Yeah.
Of course she did. Go on, Steve.
The world is watching Australia this week because on Wednesday, the social media ban finally comes into effect. Now, if you're anything like me, I feel like this has been coming for such a long time
So
and
this
it's finally
Wednesday.
here. This Wednesday.
It's like Christmas for some of us, friends.
The Quickie has you covered on the nuts and bolts of what is happening, and there are a lot of nuts and bolts in terms of how this is going to be implemented. They also have an interview with the teenagers who are challenging this ban in the High Court. But I wanted to check in on how we're all feeling about it. Because I've been on a bit of a roller coaster of emotions about this ban. At first, I felt real unbridled joy and pride in the fact that Australia is really leading the world in this, and other countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, France, Denmark, they're all considering doing exactly the same thing. Chris Pratt, he has a movie out. He's been talking about how great he thinks the social media ban is. So, you know, the world is looking at us and is cheering us on in large parts of it. But in the last couple of weeks, I've started to hear some arguments that have given me pause about this ban. One of them came from the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper, which reported today that a full 2/3 of parents are going to find ways to get around this ban. And I hadn't even considered that there were ways to get around the ban. But of course, Holly's been implying to me that there are many loopholes and many ways in which parents are just going to say, I can't fight this fight with my teenager. I can't pull an addict away from something. And look, I should say that Albo, in response to this kind of criticism, says it was never meant to be perfectly enforced. It was meant to start conversations and it was meant to change a social norm over time. But it does kind of make me think that it's being undermined a little bit by parents. Holly, what do you think?
Oh, I've been dying to talk about this. Every episode I'm like, can we talk about it yet? We're like, stop it. Just full disclosure, because if you are a regular Out Louder, you would have heard my voice last week reading some ads from the federal government about the social media delay, as they're calling it. And I agreed to do those because I am a supporter. Like full disclosure, I think it's great, but I think it's complicated. And I think we have to be really mindful in the next few weeks, months, whatever, of where the criticisms about this are coming from, right? Because one thing you've got to remember, and we're not getting into the nuts and bolts as you say, but the pressure in this case is on the tech companies to stop kids getting on their apps, rather than it's not supposed to be to stop parents from letting their kids get on the apps. Do you understand that distinction, right? So it's not like if you have a 15-year-old and your 15-year-old is still on Snapchat next week, you're going to go to prison. That's not what's going to happen, and nor are they, and you're not going to get fined, and nor are they. The idea is to pressure the tech companies to make it much harder, if not impossible, for kids under 16 to get online. Now, that's not something the tech companies are fans of, right? They have 99% of Australian teenagers use some form of social media, 99%. So that is a lot of customers who are being served ads all the time. So there are lots of sort of vested interests, without wanting to sound too conspiratorial about this, who are not mad keen on this working. And so I think we have to be mindful of that. But back to the point, Amelia, of whether parents are going to help their kids get around this ban. They definitely are going to, because so my kids are exactly in the bullseye for this, right? 13 and 15. And me and my friends, and most of my friends, I guess, who are, I see regularly, their kids are somewhere in that ballpark too, probably aged between like 9 and 16. And we say all the time, what did we fight about before there were phones? What did parents and kids argue about before there were phones? Because it is the biggest source of contention in every house I know, including my own. Screen time, phone usage, addiction, social media, all of those things are the things that we have most conflict about. And so in a way you'd think, oh, well, how great, because now you don't have to row about it because it's just illegal for them to be on YouTube or whatever.
That's exactly what I thought.
But that's not the case, because what it means is you are now going to be fighting about them getting off those things. So I think that you've got to, and I think that the thing is, although I'm a big supporter of the ban, I've never been a really big supporter of the Jonathan Haidt kind of argument that really parents just all need to get together and agree, me and all my friends are not going to buy our kids phones, because I think it's a really simplistic idea, given all the forces that are coming at us, that if parents were just grew a pair and told their kids to get off phones, we wouldn't have a problem. I think this is a really complicated relationship that teens have with these platforms. We've just been handed a really good tool to be able to help us get the kids off them. But I think that the great benefit of this ban is actually not going to be 15-year-olds. It's going to be for the 12-year-olds who are never going to get on these platforms in the first place, or the 9-year-olds who are not going to be handed a phone at 11 and given Snapchat anymore. I think that actually the biggest benefit is going to come for those kids rather than for the kids who are already in the eye of the storm.
That's an interesting idea, because even smoking, right? Like if you look at there were all different, there were public health campaigns, and there was the cost and almost the social backlash towards people who smoked. And that didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen with one piece of legislation or one policy. It happened gradually. And so a lot of the arguments that I hear against it, I think about alcohol. You can say, oh, well, a parent can technically go out and buy alcohol for a 17-year-old. What if the parent wants to have a glass of wine in their house with their 17-year-old? What if they're 17 and 11? Like, that's been going on forever, and you negotiate it as a family. But the fact that it is sort of enshrined in law that that's not something that a 17-year-old is allowed to do is in the parent's arsenal, and it's in the teacher's arsenal as well. Like, I'm thinking about all of the teachers who are dealing with social media conflicts every single day as part of their job, who can now probably go, you shouldn't even be on there. Like even that gives them something. And I think that it shows the Australian government has a backbone. I think it's brave. I think it's bold. The rest of the world is following suit, not identically, interestingly. So even Denmark, I think, there's a lot of talk about that they're not allowed on without parental consent. I wonder if that is a change that will happen, or curfew is the other thing that they're talking about.
The problem with the parental consent model is, in theory, this only really works if it's everybody. So that's always Jonathan Haidt's argument that I referenced before. And if you're not aware, he is the guy who wrote The Anxious Generation. He's an American, psychologist. And he's very widely credited for, it was actually the South Australian Premier's wife who read that book here and started pushing her husband to do something about this. But that's kind of the theory, that his stuff about the village, like parents should get together in a village almost and say we're all not going to do phones, is really, as I say, I don't think that works. I think it's a bit of a middle-class fantasy that everybody's just going to do that. But I think that the thing that's really good about the social media ban, if it works, is that your kid is going to say, I'm so isolated from my friends. If you kick me off social media, it's like, but none of your friends are going to be on social media, so you're not going to be isolated from your friends. Yeah. And you'll find somewhere else to gather on the internet, not here.
There are some really good arguments, as there is with any change in legislation. So there was an article in The Guardian by Ezra Scholl, who is the son of Natasha Scholl, who we've spoken about on this podcast before. She's a brilliant writer. And he is 15 and is quadriplegic. He is in a wheelchair. He has suffered the most horrific health crises over the last few years. And the thing that has connected him to the outside world when he has been stuck in a hospital bed during adolescence has been social media. And I don't doubt that that's his story. And in fact, he made some really good points. He wrote, if tech companies have the capability to delete accounts for people under the age of 16, they also have the capability to delete accounts that bully, harass, or cause harm. And he said that he's been bullied. He gets stuff all the time, and he reports these accounts and nothing happens. And as anyone with a profile knows, you can get horrifically abused and nothing. So I think this also proves the capabilities that tech companies have to do more than they're doing. But I think that ultimately this is about utilitarianism. I think it's about the greater good. I think it's got to look at the what this has done to teen brains. And when I look at, I saw this interview with Miranda Kerr a few months ago. I think you talked about it on Parenting Out Loud. And the Miranda Kerrs of the world, who of course are married to the founder of Snapchat, do you think their kids have access to social media? No, they don't, because they know that screens are corrosive and damaging and blah, blah, blah. So what I've always hated is the divide between the tech billionaires, who are very strict with their screen time, and just allowing everyone else to kind of fall victim to it.
And let's be clear, those tech companies right now are quaking in their very expensive boots. And Holly, I couldn't underscore more what you said before about be conscious of where you're hearing criticism over the next few weeks and who is criticizing this legislation, because these companies, they're not worried about the fines from the Australian government. They've made the point that, look, these companies could be fined 50 million Aussie dollars if they're shown to not be making sure that the safeguards are in place to stop children from signing up. Yeah, $50 million is nothing for Meta. Someone pointed out, who used to work at Meta, in a BBC article, that that's the equivalent of a parking ticket for Meta. Yeah. They make $50 million in about 2 hours, so it's not really a problem for them. That's not why they're worried. They're not worried about the $50 million. They're worried that the Australian government is leading the charge in changing a social norm that will make a child looking at TikTok or YouTube the same as seeing a child smoking a cigarette. Yeah. You can see a child smoking a cigarette. It's pretty rare these days, but I'm sure that there are some kids who sneak a cigarette. But we look at it aghast because we have decided as a society that that is not okay. And that is what the social media companies are worried about.
And the tech companies aren't worried that the poor teenagers won't be able to, really galvanize and have their online communities. They're not worried about that. They're worried that they're not going to be able to serve them ads anymore. And that, I think, is surely we can hold hands and agree that that's a good thing.
Absolutely, and I do. The only thing I want to say, though, is that when we're talking about the parent, like the articles that are coming out now about parents aren't going to enforce it, and there will inevitably be a conversation about like, helicopter parents can't be strict with their kids. That's what all the comments say, right? Yeah. Is they'll say, and I want to be really clear because as I say, I am in that sort of bullseye. It's hard to hear. If your kid is, say, 16 or out of this now, it's hard to hear everybody around you saying, your kid's brain is damaged, your kid is addicted, you've been terrible parents who've just let your kids have unfettered access to this. Our kids are all going to be pure and great and we're never going to give them screens and they won't, It's hard to hear that and not get your hackles up because this is a truth, and I'll put my hand up and say it's a truth for me too. Technology and phones and all that come along with them, which we are broadly as a culture now sort of holding hands and going, not great for kids, have kind of made parenting a lot easier in a million ways, right? Like they really have for busy working families, for the kind of parents which most parents are, who don't have all the time in the world to be policing what their kids are doing every minute, who don't have the time to be ferrying them around to improving activities and all that stuff. There does feel to me to be a little bit of a snobby divide opening about whether or not the kids who aren't addicted to social media are in one class and one who aren't. And I think that that's part of all the arguments we're going to see opening up over the next few weeks. I think we need to be careful not to demonize this generation that have grown up with their phones. If this ban is successful and followed around the world and different, and, as you say, Amelia, the social norm is successfully shifted, and let's all hope it is. I genuinely hope that it is. That's great. But we are going to then have this generational line of kind of like in the old days, we grew up before they knew that it was bad for you to drink when you were pregnant or not clip your kids in the car. I heard you talking on Parenting Out Loud about seatbelts and drawing that comparison. Like we shouldn't demonize that, just like I think we shouldn't demonize the parents who've got a 15-year-old right now and they're going, if they're on Snapchat for another month, is that going to be the end of the world?
No, and part of that is recognizing that the most powerful people and the richest people the world has ever seen have thrown everything at the wall to make children dependent on what their offerings are. And the more that we can shift that understanding from, it's not about what parents have decided or not decided. It was the most sophisticated propaganda machine that had ever been thrown at anyone, and it was thrown at kids. And now the Albanese government is trying to stop that tide.
And Wednesday, I think, is the first day in what I think they want to be a cultural, social, worldwide shift. And I don't think if on Friday all of the kids aren't off social media, it's a failure.
Agreed. But thoughts and prayers if you're arguing with your 14-year-old about this right now. My social media feed, because I'm an adult and I'm allowed to have one this weekend, has been swamped by a lot of women who've been to see Oprah Winfrey on her tour around Australia. So if you're not on the same kind of algorithmical bent as I am, the 71-year-old is in Australia right now playing these massive audiences of mostly women. She's also doing lots of social media. So every city she goes to, she's doing a hike there because she says she hikes every day now. And she is eating local delicacies. And then she's having these huge sort of arena-sized shows. Women are going. The vibe seems to be very much with their mates, getting dressed up. Put either your Camilla or your imitation Camilla kaftan on. Go and see Oprah talk and then post her wisdom. The kind of things I'm seeing being posted are, they're saying, you don't know if you're seeing any of this, but it's like 5 things I learned at Oprah last night.
Oh, I'm seeing all of them and I'm reading all of them because I would have loved to go.
Are people loving it?
Yeah, so I'm seeing this kind of thing. This is interesting. You cannot be friends with anyone who is even a little bit jealous of you. This is one of the things I saw. This is unfortunate. I've declared in the past, Jessie, that I have had times when I've been jealous of you.
And then
now we can't be friends anymore.
Exactly.
Jealousy is a crack in the foundation, says Oprah. The whole house will fall.
Oh, gosh, I'm prone to jealousy. What does that mean?
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Homeless.
Life is whispering to you all of the time. You only go off track when you're not listening.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. I like that. I don't fully understand it, but I like the vibe.
Yeah. This is the kind of stuff that I'm seeing posted everywhere saying this is what Oprah taught me last night. The stereotype of the women who are going, but I'm sure this isn't entirely true, of course, is that they're a certain age, that they're white, that they're into self-optimization. But this is largely an audience that's come of age with her, right? So Oprah is a guru to this generation.
See, I will fight you on that.
Good.
I don't think that it is a certain generation. The people I'm seeing are in their 20s. They are diverse.
Great.
And when I looked into it, one of the hallmarks of her longevity has been the diversity of her audience.
Yes. I mean, I think that's certainly true because she's, she has so many stories to tell. But I think she is seen by her critics as being like a sort of Temu guru in a way, when really I would argue she's the OG.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, Amelia always says that you're a bit baffled by the Oprah phenomena.
Yeah, like full disclosure, I wanted to do this today because I did see she was in Australia, and I have to admit that phenomenon passed me by, and I want to learn. I want to learn why Australian women in particular evidently still love Oprah. After decades in the public eye, she is still attracting thousands of people to these shows. They're gathering a lot from it. I want you to explain her appeal to me.
Do you want a little cheat sheet?
I do.
On Oprah Winfrey. Now, this could be the longest cheat sheet of all time, but it's not going to be because we would be here all day. Did you know the place that Oprah was born, which is in Mississippi in the States, is called Kosciuszko?
No.
I didn't know that. It's an interesting Australian connection. Let's mark that down.
There's a Kosciuszko Bridge in New York City.
Yeah, so there you go. So famously, I guess the Oprah myth, and it isn't a myth, it is her origin story, is a large part of her appeal, right? Very top line. She was born to teenage parents in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, and she had a very tough upbringing. She was sexually abused as a teenager. She gave birth to a little boy at 14. He died. Despite this absolutely traumatic upbringing, I guess you'd say, she started working for a TV station locally to her when she was 17. And then she was working in Baltimore, and then she most notably made a move to Chicago, which is where she built her empire, right? So from a very young age, she was incredibly driven. There are so many firsts when it comes to Oprah Winfrey, right? She was the first woman in history to own and produce her own talk show. She was the first Black American woman to be syndicated, the first Black American woman to be a billionaire, the first Black American woman to own a TV network. But she decided that news reporting wasn't really her thing because she struggled with the objectivity of it, which is a very
self-aware thing to say. I love it.
Yeah, it's very self-aware, but it also is like one of the foundations for what she then almost invented in a way, which was this like
own your truth.
Yes, own your truth. So rather than just reporting the news, she wanted to create the culture, I guess, right? So she wanted to be a journo. She was the first female news anchor of colour, as we say. And in 1984, she relocated to Chicago to host a low-rated morning talk show called AM Chicago. It was immediately a hit with her hosting it, right? They say that because she was authentic and empathetic and engaging, she quickly took the show from last place to the top of the ratings within a year. And they soon renamed the show after her within a year of her doing it. By 1988, so only 4 years, that show was such a hit, and she acquired ownership and production responsibilities for it, making her the first woman in history to own and produce her own talk show.
Wow. She invented it.
She invented that shit. She founded Harpo Productions, groundbreaking move that secured her creative control and made her loads of money. It's another big thing about Oprah. She is very, very rich, as we know. There are lots of firsts for Oprah. First African-American person to be syndicated, first African-American woman to be a billionaire, to own a TV company, lots and lots of firsts. And then, as we know, right, the Oprah Winfrey Show started off in a kind of, it was like, I don't know what we call it, like shock TV in those days. Like she'd have warring family members. I remember very clearly an episode she had the Ku Klux Klan on.
That is how, as a child of the 90s, I knew Oprah. She had this talk show that had the scandalous sort of soap opera-y elements to it.
See, I think that you can only understand Oprah in relationship to Jerry Springer. Like Jerry Springer was the scandalous, ethically dubious, there was no soul to it. It was maybe the original rage bait. That was happening. And Oprah was almost the more like morally upright version of that.
But it's the order of things. So Oprah was first.
Uh-huh.
And Oprah's TV show did have a fair bit of that, but she didn't like it. By the end of the 80s, she was over that kind of stuff. And she wanted to move in the 90s, which she did, into more... Like, it's amazing to think that the infamous Wagon of Fat episode, which is one of the things that is most often used to criticize her for, which is the episode where very famously she lost lots of weight on a diet that she later admitted was incredibly dangerous and basically starvation. And then she walked onto her set with her Wagon of Fat, was in 1988. And that is a very long time ago. So she was doing that kind of stuff. And then Jerry Springer started doing it. Dr. Phil started doing it. These other people started doing it. And she was like, oh, I think I've given birth to a monster. And she shifted into self-help stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that part of the reason why that Wagon of Fat was such a milestone in TV history and for Oprah was because she basically kind of invented vulnerability on TV? Because before that, is it true that it was much more polished and people didn't sort of open up in that way about their struggles?
Yeah, I think so. They weren't as candid about it. And when you go back and you look at all the times Oprah was asked or mocked or criticized openly to her face on other talk shows about her weight, you can completely understand how she got to that point. And I think that she was trying to use it as a way to help inspire other women, which ironically now, her being in Australia, if you have a really good look at that poster of Oprah's touring poster, it's got a big face of her and it's got all the dates of this national tour that she's doing. You can see presented by, and it has a brand name that I actually didn't recognize. And that brand is a pharmaceutical company that makes weight loss products, which is why she's here. They've paid for her to come out here, which is sort of a lens by which a lot of maybe her social media content makes more sense, that she's, doing these hikes and that, lots of commentary, as there always has been, about her body.
The one I saw of her in Sydney after she'd been on a hike and then she went to eat hotcakes said something to the effect of, I've now earned myself the ability to have an indulgent meal.
Yeah.
And so there is still, it is diet adjacent culture that she is still pushing.
And no one has marinated in diet culture more than Oprah Winfrey. Like, she has been the subject of it. She has been in many ways a victim of it. But then I suppose at the same time she's espoused it because that's the world in which she grew up.
I think you've got to remember that, like, at her peak, so the peak of Oprah's powers in terms of influence were the 80s and 90s, right? Mm-hmm. And diet culture, in inverted commas, didn't exist. As in, it did absolutely exist, but we didn't have a name for it. We couldn't point at it.
It was in the air that you breathe.
Yeah.
It's just every single woman wanted to lose weight.
Life.
Yeah.
And so if you think that the power that Oprah harnessed, and then, as you say, Jessie, that power kind of got hijacked by lots of other shows and things, was middle America, right? Middle, ordinary, in inverted commas, people watching television during the day, wrestling with the kind of things that ordinary people wrestle with, which is family dynamics and problems, money, weight, relationships. She spoke to people about the shit they really cared about rather than what she thought they should care about.
Yeah.
That's the secret of her success in those days. And we can pretend as much as we want, retrospectively or otherwise, that women didn't care about losing weight, but women cared, and you could still argue now, care enormously about weight. They just do. And I think that Oprah, if we think about the Wagon of Fat being 1988, which is a very long time ago, over that time, I think that Oprah's lens on it has shifted as well. She, during that time, has lost weight, put on weight, written a million different words about it, spoken words about it, decided not to speak about it at all, make a deal with Weight Watchers, make a deal with medical weight loss company. Don't do that. Like, over that time, she has ridden all kinds of waves with that. And she's been blamed in a way for being a paragon of diet culture, when I think that actually she just kind of reflects it to us.
She gave voice to it.
Yeah, and she reflects it to us. And so where she is now, here having been brought here by a medical weight loss company, which whatever feelings you have about that, and there are many to have, I think, she reflects where weight loss culture is in this moment, which is the GLP-1 revolution. You can go hiking and eat hotcakes and take the obesity is a disease. That's what she's talking about a lot. So I think it's hard to uncouple Oprah from that, but she's actually a lot more than that, right?
And what I'm hearing from the way that you describe her extraordinary rise is that she made people who didn't feel very seen feel seen and understood as well, not just seen but understood, at a time when their concerns were seen as quotidian or not important or superficial or silly. And so what do you think accounts for both the longevity of that career? Because now everyone discloses everything. So back in the 80s and the early 90s when she's doing the Wagon of Fat, that's unusual and revolutionary. Now we all know too much about each other, as the internet meme goes. So what do you think accounts for that continued fascination with Oprah when everyone's disclosing everything? And also for Australian women, she strikes me as so quintessentially American in her rise and in the adversity that she's had to overcome. What is it about Oprah these days for Australian women that still clearly resonates?
I think she doesn't talk about structural inequality. She doesn't talk about the structures. She doesn't talk about things like corporate power or the gender divide or environmental degradation or all the scary big things. She talks about you and your purpose.
The scary small things.
Yeah, exactly right. That actually she talks so eloquently about grief and about friendship and about your goals and your purpose, which it applies to the poor person in middle America. It applies to the rich celebrity in Hollywood equally. And so I think whether or not that's a good thing and whether or not it's at all true or you can uncouple, capitalist structures from how people's lives turn out, whatever. But the reason that she can fill a room is because there's something like fundamentally empowering about that. And I've always had a relationship to Oprah that's like your great auntie who always buys you a really good present and has great advice and gives you the right book at the right moment. Like that's as simple.
And who doesn't want that?
And everyone wants that. And she's even seen as having been responsible for the reinvigoration of reading in the US,
book
like
clubs in the
what she
90s.
did with her book club and her magazine and everything.
And now Reese and all these other people have come in her footsteps. Gwyneth, all these people wouldn't exist with the business empires they do were it not for Oprah.
Yeah.
I think it's so true, Jessie. I think that her appeal is because her story, her origin story, and then all the things she's been through in the past 4 decades, people are very seduced by stories of transformation. That's true whether they are, privileged and wealthy, but always wanting to be better, like the self-optimization culture, which you could string together quite a good argument that Oprah has mainstreamed because therapy speak, self-optimization, a certain amount of woo-woo. The points of criticism that you can put on her now, for example, she was a massive supporter of The Secret. The first time I ever saw The Secret, it was on Oprah, those kind of things. So, but she mainstreamed all that stuff and she is in herself, she embodies a story of transformation and she continues to. And I think that's really seductive to everybody. And I reckon at different times, the big points of criticism for Oprah are the weight stuff, which we just talked about, toxic diet culture. The fact that she is a multi-billionaire who apparently her property portfolio is worth like $5 billion. Now, she is also a massive I always fail with this word, philanthropist.
She did land in Australia on a private jet.
She did. So she goes hand
but
in
I
hand.
would too. That's a long flight.
Yeah. She gives hundreds of millions to charities that she supports and she has an academy in South Africa and all those things. But still, how you cannot be beyond reproach when you've got that level of personal wealth. She owns large swathes of Hawaii.
So it's interesting that it's the women billionaires who often get this criticism that in itself being a billionaire is not okay.
Well, that's true, although I do have a few problems with some of the male billionaires too. She has had lots of criticism for the people she's chosen to platform over time. We're talking about before racists like the KKK. She got in a lot of trouble on her book club for James Frey. Remember the guy with a million little pieces? We talked the other week about Jenny McCarthy, the anti-vaxxer, various kind of questionable health gurus. But then if you're on telly for 40 years making content in all kinds of different climates, like you are going to get it wrong sometimes. So she gets a lot of criticism for all those things.
And like you say, because she's done so many firsts, there's something by definition pushing the boundaries about what she does. It's inevitable that there's...
And also what's interesting about Opes, as I like to call her because we're such good friends, is one of her pieces of magic, which I think some very famous, successful people have, is that even though they are so unrelatable in every way, she sort of feels relatable too. And one of the things that's interesting about Oprah in terms of being one of the most iconic women of a generation is that her private life is quite unconventional, really. So she's never married. She's been with the Stedman. We could all recite this. They have been together for 40 years. Wow. They once got engaged but quickly called it off but never broke up.
Did they? Have they explained why?
They're just not into it.
Yeah, right.
She was, at that time in her life, she was always, I prioritize work. But, her life has been work. She never had children after that tragic death of that little boy when she was a teenager. She has her famous best friend, Gayle King, who is famous now too, goes everywhere with her. In fact, my favourite Oprah detail is that in all of her homes, which is the kind of thing you can only say about billionaires, Gayle has her own room, like with her own decor. And I'm always like, if I was that's what I'd do.
That's so great.
Gayle is the love of her life.
Gayle is the love of her life. And she's fought off a lot of, none of that is particularly relatable business. But everybody's like, yeah, Oprah. I don't know. I think my position on her, I would have liked to go and see her, even though I do have some issues with the blatant product placement of the aforementioned medical weight loss company. I don't necessarily like her or not like her, but she's just, there's no question she's one of the most iconic figures.
I think it would have been a lovely night. Thanks. I would have really enjoyed it. If you're not up to date with New Heights, Travis Kelce's podcast, aka Taylor Swift's fiance and a famous NFL player, I want to tell you about an episode recently. Do we all regularly listen to New Heights?
You love that podcast, don't you?
Yeah. It's a weekly listen. I've never listened to 1 minute of this podcast.
Oh, I listened to the interview with Taylor. Holy smokies, that was great. That was 2 hours of my life.
Did you ever listen to another one?
No, but But the reason I know what you're going to say in a minute is because I did see these social media clips where he was interviewing one George Clooney, who, up there with Oprah for me.
Yeah, okay. So he had George Clooney on and they got onto the topic of relationships. Travis asked his friend George about something he'd said about a year or so ago, which actually came up on our podcast as well, which is that George Clooney said that him and Amal have not, in their 10 years together, ever had a fight.
Fun fact for you, they've got twins.
They do.
Yes.
And they seem to be thriving.
They're doing really well. You just have to be like George and Amal.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, that's really inspiring.
We'll ask them to send you some positivity messages.
Exactly right. They seem to like their twins. Okay, this is great. Then George replied, I'm not lying. Travis, shall we ask you the same question? And Travis confessed that while him and Taylor only been together for 2.5 years, they have never gotten into an argument, not once. And then came the commentary. So there was a viral tweet that was sharing that headline and it said, this is a bad sign. Another said, when couples say this shit, all I can think is you're either a psychopath or you view your partner the same way you do a pet.
Ooh, a pet.
And an article on Mamamia called their lack of fighting a red flag. Amelia, is it a red flag?
It's interesting that we kind of go back and forth as a society about what we think the gold standard is because in my life already, I feel like I've lived through a couple of incarnations of this. There was a time where the gold standard was no fighting.
Yeah.
And then it very much moved. I think we all got Perel pilled. That's my phrase for the therapization of our culture by Esther Perel. And Esther Perel's basic idea is that you can talk through anything, including an affair. She's basically like, setting aside abuse, obviously. You can work through just about any relationship issue if you just hash it out.
Yeah, have a little cheat. Go for it.
There's a Psychology Today headline that kind of summarizes where we were as a culture around this issue for a long time, which was if you never fight, someone is hiding. So the idea is that if you're not fighting, it's because you're repressing something, and that's a very unhealthy, even toxic dynamic.
Is it though?
Well, but then now it feels like we've now swung back, and now we've got these two, probably the two most kind of iconic couples in the world right now, George and Amal, Taylor and Travis, proudly declaring that they don't fight. I think we've seen the pendulum swing back again.
Okay, unpopular opinion. Holly. All the money in the world, clean house, not fighting over directions.
No, but they do have twins, as Holly says.
I know, but I think they would have some support around them.
I think Taylor and Travis actually have kind of a complicated schedule to deal with. He is a professional football player. She just did the most successful tour of all time. Can you imagine their GCal for the two of them?
The GCal would be intense, but I will
What's a
also say
GCal?
Google Calendar, Holly
sorry.
Wainwright. Oh, God.
We've still got a calendar in the kitchen on the wall.
Oh, no.
I don't think that's going to cut it for Taylor and
Really?
Travis.
No, it barely cuts it for us, to be honest.
Highlighter is Taylor's eras tour.
Exactly.
The blue is Travis's football schedule.
But you look at all those things and you also go, 2.5 years, you don't have kids. Do they have a shared mortgage yet? I don't think they'll have a mortgage, will they, Amelia? Maybe.
Mortgage, imagine Taylor and Travis at the bank sitting there.
Applying for a loan. I don't think that they're going to be there. So are there less things to fight about when you're Travis and Taylor?
Oh, yeah. I think that Clooney said, what would we fight about? Question mark. That must be one of the most privileged questions
It's like,
of all
George,
time.
could you wipe the
What
bench?
would we fight about,
Yeah.
guys?
Can you wipe the bench? I'll just get our cleaner who's right here to do it. Great.
George could be like, I hate human rights.
Exactly. Oh, my God. Amal, you're too beautiful. Stop it. I hate fighting, which is why my preferred method is the much more insidious, toxic, passive-aggressive fighting. So instead of saying, like, you haven't cleaned the bench, you say something like, interesting how you chose to just leave that little thing that, like, or whatever it is.
Which is a discussion.
It's a discussion, exactly. Interesting how you still don't know where this goes in the cupboard.
That's an observation.
Exactly.
That's not a fight.
Interesting how you didn't put the lid back on the toothpaste.
Yes.
And that's just an invitation to explore your different techniques
Exactly.
of toothpaste management. I think Pass Agnes is good. I don't know. I think it's interesting. Tara from Mamamia wrote, as you said, that this was a red flag and that she was worried about it because she said a huge part of any relationship is conflict resolution and learning each other's fight styles. But what if you're two people who hate fighting? Are you supposed to force yourself to fight? Because it's important to know. Maybe your fight style is, to your point before, Amelia, hiding. My fight style might be retreat, not attack. You know what I mean?
I don't think Esther Perel is a huge fan of retreat or passive aggression.
What's wrong with retreat?
Well, she has this interesting quote. She says, what most people don't realize is that you're not actually fighting about money or commitment or who does the housework. What you're actually fighting about is a lack of affection, respect, power, or some combination of the three.
It's just the toothpaste lid.
Another way of thinking about this is that there's this sort of like adage that every couple has the same 3 fights and it just manifests in different ways.
I very much agree with that.
And I guess those same 3 fights are affection, respect, and power. And now even Taylor and Travis and George and Amal are having to navigate relationship dynamics where those things are flowing back and forth.
This is about our definition of fight.
Yeah,
and
I
it's about our
agree.
definition of argument. I reckon that if you are the child of parents who fought really openly, if you felt like you had to walk on eggshells, and sometimes I think it's just temperament. You don't like to escalate, then you might resist going to that. And I don't think any way is necessarily better or worse.
Because don't you have a degree in psychology? Can't you
Claire
tell
does.
us?
Claire does.
I'm sorry.
Claire has a degree in psychology.
And because you're identical twins, if she's got a degree in psychology,
I do.
do you have
What's
a
your
degree in psychology?
I thought it
Yes.
was psychology.
No, I have a master's in history.
Oh,
and
not gender studies. Gender studies.
Yeah, both
Well,
of
there
them,
you go.
Both of them. Didn't give me a lot of clarity on fighting, but I will say it did make me good at arguing. And therefore, I remember thinking this at the time, George Clooney's just a clever man, not to fight with a human rights lawyer.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you just need to know your strengths.
That's so
right?
true.
And
but
so-
then who's the better fighter between Taylor and Travis? I think
Taylor by about 1,000%.
She's a poet.
Do we remember that interview where
Travis probably has some kind of brain injury from the football.
she used a couple of long words and he went, wow.
You're amazing. But I reckon that you can sort of disagree with things and there can be points of tension in the relationship, but you wouldn't define that as a fight. Like there can be discussions. I would think that in my own relationship. Like we don't like
I hate fighting.
We really
it makes
don't
me
like
feel
it.
so.
And even I don't fight with my mum. I don't fight with, that doesn't mean that we don't have moments of probably what would be considered conflict. And I think that conflict management evolves in that way. But the idea that I just think we use the term red flag too liberally now. We just stick it on everything. And it's like if your biggest problem is that you get along too well, I think you're doing all right.
So you're not worried for them? You're not losing any sleep?
I'm not losing a second of sleep.
Very selfish of you, Jessie.
I know people who love fighting. And it's their dynamic in their relationship. They shout,
is that good?
And they're shouting at each other, and it gets all the sexual juices going. They love it. And if you're around them as someone who hates fighting, you're very uncomfortable. I get very uncomfortable if people are fighting. I get very uncomfortable. Retreat, see, but that doesn't mean they're right and I'm wrong. It's just different strokes.
But do you feel like that kind of relationship where you are even observing the fighting, it's that sort of prevalent that people in their lives are watching them fight? That cannot actually be good for the relationship, for them to be fighting that much.
No, but I think people would say we're getting things out in the open. Like we say what we mean, we clear the air. You know how there are some people who cry easily, and if you're not a crier, you see them crying, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You take it really seriously, and then you get to know them and you realise that it's not a big deal that they're crying. I think for some people, shouting and arguing is like that too. So you're thinking, oh, these guys are going to get divorced. They're fighting, and for them it's just Tuesday. You know, it's like, I think different dynamics. But I think if you, as to your point, Jessie, if various things in your life made you feel like fighting is unsafe, that someone might leave at any time, like you're not going to be fighting.
I read this theory. It's called the little foxes theory of couple fights. And it's some quote from the Bible, the foxes reference. But basically what it means is that most couples, when you get down to it, if you said, Amelia, explain to me your last fight with your partner, it would be over nothing. Like I wouldn't understand it probably.
It's sort of the opposite of that idea that you're actually fighting about affection, respect, power.
Which, you know what, you probably are. That's the underlying thing. But in terms of what I was speaking to a friend recently who had a fight with his partner, and it was like, it's like a misinterpretation of a thing, and then someone snapped. The biggest fight Luca and I have ever had was when Luna was really little, and I said to him, it was late at night, and I said, you're up. And I meant you're up as in you're awake. Could you take the baby? Mm-hmm. And he heard it as you're up, like, look at you, finally around to look after the baby. And it was this complete miscommunication of tone that was about absolutely nothing. But underlying it was just two people that were really tired or whatever it is. And I think that often those little fights are about nothing at all.
There is another option we haven't considered, that maybe George Clooney, Travis Kelce are perfect people who always put the lid back on the toothpaste, who never give their partners any reason to be angry with them in any way. Is this a possibility?
Yeah, and they're perfect
they do
people.
seem pretty agreeable, I have to say.
And they married perfect people.
Yeah, they do.
That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the life hack that we all forgot.
I wonder if Brent says this about me. Because Clooney said, neither of us are going to win. I've met this incredible woman. She's beautiful and smart, and she stands for all the most important things I believe in the world. And I can't believe how lucky I am. So what am I going to fight about? I reckon Brent says
the
that.
only important thing you stand for, Holly Wainwright, is George Clooney. And I don't.
I'm here for George. Thank you for watching us here on YouTube Out Louders. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below. See ya.